Excuse me, kiddo. Hello and welcome, or welcome not, to my channel. That is not my customary opening, is it? No, what I meant was welcome or welcome back to my channel. I just did it. I said it that way in keeping with the spirit of my country these days, which is welcoming nobody to our shores. Even persons here explicitly on vacation have found themselves rounded up and deported. Even citizens have been deported. Persons going through all the legal and legitimate steps for asylum or for naturalized citizenship have been deported. People following all the laws have been deported. The foot in the door, so to speak, was the words, criminals, we're going to get criminals. Of course, any kind of visa violation or whatever is not a criminal act. Possibly initially somebody coming in to the country illegally, crossing the Rio Grande, was a criminal act, followed by decades of law-abidingness. Doesn't matter to this crowd. And because it turns out there were not sufficient numbers of criminals amongst the immigrant population, this administration, this regime has explicitly ordered the targeting of the law-abiding. It's easier to catch law-abiding people anyhow. And so people are being rounded up from job sites, from hospitals, from churches, and so forth. That is my country, the United States of America. People being torn away from their families, possibly forever. In some cases, people being killed in custody. Accidentally or not, we do not know. And so forth. Well, I am not talking about that today. This is becoming more and more a poetry channel. I have lately positioned myself as a booktuber, but my reading of books has kind of slowed since this vile regime has taken power and is attempting to claw its way to more and more illegitimate power. The Republican Party has completely laid itself supine, I guess is the word, before the diktats of the would-be autocrat in charge. The legislative branch has effectively ceded its authority to the executive arm of government. And the judicial branch appears to be not far behind. The judicial branch will not save us. Your legislators will not save us. Our legislators will not save us, I should say. Your legislators will not save you. However, we must still push our legislators. We must still exhaust all legal means, all in an attempt to slow down the heinous processes enacted by this regime, becoming commonplace by this regime. We must slow them down. We must gum the works. We must exercise our rights, which have not been taken away. Exercise our free speech. Well, I am not going to preach at you any further. As I said, this is a poetry channel, or has become. I have not looked at George Santayana in some while, but I pulled out this old Dover book. Dover. One nice thing about these old Dover books is they were built to last. They tend to maintain their fine condition. So, Santayana's poetry tends toward the philosophic, which is why I think I have never read him as much as some other poet. A few of his sonnets were in a poetry reading I did just a couple of days ago, and so I've been thinking about him and his work. I would love to read a biography of the poet, but I don't know if one exists, or I would assume one exists, probably not recently, but which would be a good one. Be that as it may, be it known that our regime today would call George Santayana a criminal. He would be hounded. He would be kidnapped, abducted, what have you. If he had a wife, he would be wrenched from his wife, from his children. I don't know if he had those. Why? Because he was born in a foreign country. He was born in Spain. And though he grew up here from the age of 8 and always considered himself an American, he never got naturalized citizenship. So his passport would have remained that of Spain, that of a Spanish citizen. Now, he might have been given a little bit of leeway by this administration, depending on how white his face happened to be. The fact that he contributed flawless poetry to the English language would count for nothing. Zip, nil, nada. No, he would be in some detention center in Louisiana, sharing a room with 70 some other people, one sole toilet, half a cup of water in the day, maybe some moldy bread. The bread in these places never seems to come without mold. That is how we, under this regime, and especially our ICE criminals, would treat this man. We must bend the arc of the universe in this country toward justice with all our efforts, and we must bring ICE men to justice. What they do is not unknown. We don't even know. Some of these masked hooligans are possibly bounty hunters, possibly people deputized that were formerly Proud Boys, or Promise Keepers or Oath Keepers, or some kind of Ku Klux Klanners, etc., etc., etc. We have no idea who these people are because these men refuse to identify themselves. They are masked, but be that as it may, their identities are known. We know some of them by their white supremacist tattoos, which have been visible. And so we must bend the arc of justice, bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice, and see that justice is meted out once this regime has fallen. 2, all of its proponents, all of its enablers, all of its adherents, and so forth. Now, the aged octogenarian grandpa who cast his vote for Donald Trump, well, we can give him a pass. But anybody who actively enabled this regime, this anti-constitutional regime, explicitly anti-constitutional regime, must see justice if this government is in some way, shape, or form to persist. Now, George Santayana, I believe, spent his later years in Italy. Good for him. I would like to be in Italy right now myself. But I mentioned that his poems are flawless. Recently, I can't remember what video, but the wonderful poetry channel, Knowing Poetry, there was an offhand comment made by the host of somebody's rhyme. It was an easy rhyme, or it was not an easy rhyme, something. And as a longtime versifier, it kind of confuses me. I've had so many people tell me, well, your rhymes are all easy ones. Well, I'd rather you do an easy rhyme than a difficult one, I guess. But I acknowledge there are sometimes rhymes which are way easier than others. And so I left a comment, and it was something to the effect of, I don't know, amity and wantonly. Wantonly was one of the words I used. Those would be easy rhymes. So if you go to your rhyming dictionary, you will find with the ly, there's a gazillion words that can end with ly. So those might be considered an easy rhyme. Well, this poet does not use easy rhymes. He generally uses words which are more difficult to put into a Petrarchian type of sonnet, meaning a sonnet which calls for 4 rhymes on one sound often. And you will hear he does not repeat himself often, and he uses his vocabulary in a very masterful way. I wish, and I've written 2 books of sonnets of all types. I wish I had his great facility with the language. But let me start and read you some sonnets. I'm going to read, I think it's about 20, unless something is missing. Oh my dear, he looks like Lenin. Oh. Well, the photo looks like a photo of Lenin. And this is going to come from Sonnets and Other Verses, and so it is. Sonnets 1883 to Sonnets to 1893. So these are earlier works of his. In the 1894 and 1896 editions of Sonnets and Other Verses, the dramatic poem Lucifer followed the poem Chorus. In this volume, it is placed with other dramatic material following page 159. So I will read the 20 sonnets that were in this volume, covering the span, I suppose, of a decade. And without further ado, I sought on earth a garden of delight, or island altar to the sea and air, where gentle music were accounted prayer, and reason veiled performed the happy rite. My sad youth worshipped at the piteous height, where God vouchsafed the death of man to share. His love made mortal sorrow light to bear, but his deep wounds put joy to shamed flight. And though his arms outstretched upon the tree were beautiful and pleaded my embrace, my sins were loath to look upon his face. So came I down from Golgotha to thee, eternal Mother. Let the sun and sea heal me and keep me in thy dwelling place. Slow and reluctant was the long descent, with many farewell pious looks behind, and dumb misgivings where the path might wind, and questionings of nature as I went. The greener branches that above me bent, the broadening valleys quieted my mind, to the fair reasons of the spring inclined, and to the summer's tender argument. But sometimes, as revolving night descended, and in my childish heart the new song ended, I lay down full of longing on the steep, and haunting still the lonely way I wended, into my dreams the ancient sorrow blended, and with these holy echoes charmed my sleep. O world, thou choosest not the better part. It is not wisdom to be only wise, and on the inward vision close the eyes, but it is wisdom to believe the heart. Columbus found a world and had no chart, save one that faith deciphered in the skies. To trust the soul's invincible surmise was all his science and his only art. Our knowledge is a torch of smoky pine that lights the pathway but one step ahead, across a void of mystery and dread. Bid, then, the tender light of faith to shine, by which alone the mortal heart is led unto the thinking of the thought divine. I would I had been born in nature's day, when man was in the world a wide-eyed boy, and clouds of sorrow crossed his sky of joy to scatter dewdrops on the buds of May. Then could he work and love and fight and pray, nor heartsick grow in fortune's long employ. Mighty to build and ruthless to destroy, he lived while masked death unquestioned lay. Now ponder we the ruins of the years, and groan beneath the weight of boasted gain. No unsung bacchanal can charm our ears, and lead our dances to the woodland fain. No hope of heaven sweeten our few tears, and hush the importunity of pain. Fuck ice, by the way. Remember the arc of the moral universe. Remember justice. Dreamt I today the dream of yesternight, sleep ever feigning one evolving theme. Of my two lives, which should I call the dream? Which action vanity, which vision sight? Some greater waking must pronounce aright, if aught abideth of the things that seem, and with both currents swell the flooded stream into an ocean infinite of light. Even such a dream I dream, and know full well my waking passeth like a midnight spell, but know not if my dreaming breaketh through into the deeps of heaven and of hell. I know but this of all I would I knew: truth is a dream, unless my dream is true. Love not as do the flesh-imprisoned men, whose dreams are of a bitter bought caress, or even of a maiden's tenderness, whom they love only that she loves again. For it is but thyself thou lovest then, or what thy thoughts would glory to possess. But love thou nothing, thou wouldst love the less, if henceforth ever hidden from thy ken. Love but the formless and eternal whole, from whose effulgence one unheeded ray breaks on this prism of dissolving clay into the flickering colors of thy soul. These flash and vanish, bid them not to stay, for wisdom brightens as they fade away. I swear I would have written better sonnets had I spent a lot more time reading Santayanas. I, alas, did not. I was not a born reader, a natural reader. And so, as you will understand, my proclivities led me more toward a voice like that of Claude McKay, a poet more closely of our time, whose idiom is more closely aligned with mine, and who, he did not always hit the mark, but when he did, it was not at the level of philosophy, but something much deeper in the gut. I hope to do a poetry reading of Claude McKay soon enough. Also an immigrant poet. Not exactly an immigrant of the same type as George Santayana, but nevertheless, he would be equally condemned by our current regime. So I hope to get there, but right now I am reacquainting myself with George Santayana. Did I read this one? No, I don't think I did. This is the seventh one, by the way. I would I might forget that I am I, and break the heavy chain that binds me fast, whose links about myself my deeds have cast. What in the body's tomb doth buried lie is boundless. 'Tis the spirit of the sky, Lord of the future, guardian of the past, and soon must forth to know his own at last. In his large life to live, I fain would die. Happy the dumb beast, hungering for food, but calling not his suffering his own. Blessed the angel, gazing on all good, but knowing not he sits upon a throne. Wretched the mortal, pondering his mood, and doomed to know his aching heart alone. 10. Whoop, did I skip a couple? Oh, I skipped a couple. O martyred spirit of this helpless whole, who dost by pain for tyranny atone, and in the star, the atom, and the stone, purgest the primal guilt, and in the soul. Rich but in grief, thou dost thy wealth unroll, and givest of thy substance to thine own, mingling the love, the laughter, and the groan in the large hollow of the heaven's bowl. Fill full my cup, the dregs and honeyed brim I take from thy just hand, more worthy love, for sweetening not the draught for me or him. What in myself I am, that let me prove. Relent not for my feeble prayer, nor dim the burning of thine altar for my hymn. Have patience. It is fit that in this wise the Spirit purge away its proper dross. No endless fever doth thy watches toss, for by excess of evil, evil dies. Soon shall the faint world melt before thine eyes, and all life's losses cancelled by life's loss. Thou shalt lay down all burdens on thy cross, and be that day with God in paradise. Have patience, for a long eternity no summons woke thee from thy happy sleep. For love of God one vigil thou canst keep, and add thy drop of sorrow to the sea. Having known grief, all will be well with thee, and thy second slumber will be deep. Let me read that sestet again. Have patience, for a long eternity no summons woke thee from thy happy sleep. For love of God one vigil thou canst keep, and add thy drop of sorrow to the sea. Having known grief, all will be well with thee, aye, and thy second slumber will be deep. Thy second slumber. You see, we are all in this together, we poets. And some George Santayana of today, who has the wrong nation state upon his birth certificate, or may even have no birth certificate, he would be hounded down as a criminal in my country today. So to the extent that I can, I will try to speak for the unknown George Santayanas of today, be they of whatever complexion. Many of the abducted have no voice. It is the goal of the present administration to deny them all voice. Have I the heart to wander on the earth, so patient in her everlasting course, seeking no prize, but bowing to the force that gives direction and hath given birth? Rain tears, sweet pity, to refresh my dearth, and plough my sterile bosom, sharp remorse, that I grow sick and curse my being's source, if haply one day passes lacking mirth. Doth the sun therefore burn that I may bask? Or do the tired earth and tireless sea, that toil not for their pleasure, toil for me? Amid the world's long striving, Wherefore ask what reasons were, or what rewards shall be. The covenant God gave us is a task. You see, those words, bask, task, ask, earth, birth, dearth, mirth. When you write enough poems, you come across those words often enough, and they are not easy to deal with necessarily. And I have never handled them as gracefully as he has done. And we have much to learn from all of these men, women, and children that we are removing as undesirables. Huh, what bullshit. It's the Stephen Millers of our society that are the undesirables. And yes, the Donald Trumps. Well, we are halfway through. I will try to keep my proselytizing to a minimum. Well, there is no need for proselytizing. All decency, all decent humans are on the same page with this. It is the indecent that are supporting ICE. Have you no decency, was the famous question. The answer is no. Anybody who supports this has no decency. We must abolish ICE. Deem not, because you see in me the press of this world's children run my fated race, that I blaspheme against a proffered grace, or leave unlearned the love of holiness. I honor not that sanctity the less, whose aureole illumines not my face, but dare not tread the secret holy place to which the priest and prophet have access. For some are born to be beatified by anguish and by grievous penance done, and some to furnish forth the age's pride, and to be praised of men beneath the sun. And some are born to stand perplexed aside from so much sorrow, of whom I am one. There he is. God bless you, sir. Mightier storms than this are brewed on earth, that pricks the crystal lake with summer showers. The past hath treasure of sublimer hours, and God is witness to their changeless worth. Big is the future with portentous birth of battles numberless, and nature's powers outdo my dreams of beauty in the flowers, and top my revels with the demon's mirth. But thou, glad river that hast reached the plain, scarce wakest the rushes to a slumberous sigh. The mountains sleep behind thee, and the main awaits thee, lulling an eternal pain with patience. Nor doth Phoebe, throned on high, the mirror of thy placid heart disdain. I mean, you cannot find more eloquent language than this in English poetry. You just can't find it. And if you, young man or young woman, would be a writer of verse, you can't afford to refuse anybody. I mean, as I say, I wish I had known Santayana when I was younger. I was not equipped for it. And those four linked sonnets from that last reading that I did, which I will put a link to in the description box. I've never come across those in an anthology, but then those four, you're not going to do better in English as well. Sweet are the days we wander with no hope, along life's labyrinthine trodden way, with no impatience at the steep's delay, nor sorrow at the swift descended slope. Why this inane curiosity to grope in the dim dust for gems' unmeaning ray? Why this proud piety that dares to pray for a world wider than the heavens cope? Farewell, my burden, no more will I bear the foolish load of my fond faith's despair, but trip the idle race with careless feet. The crown of olive let another wear. It is my crown to mock the runner's heat, with gentle wonder and with laughter sweet. There may be chaos still around the world, this little world that in my thinking lies. For mine own bosom is the paradise where all my life's fair visions are unfurled. Within my nature's shell I slumber curled, unmindful of the changing outer skies, where now perchance some newborn Eros flies, or some old Kronos from his throne is hurled. I heed them not, or if the subtle night haunt me with deities I never saw, I soon mine eyelids' drowsy curtain draw to hide their myriad faces from my sight. They threat in vain, the whirlwind cannot awe a happy snowflake dancing in the flaw. And when I gave this a quick glance over, and I'm sure I read this once whenever I first bought this book, but I stopped at that final word, flaw. A happy snowflake dancing in the flaw. I have never used flaw in that sense, and I only know of that sense of the word flaw from John Keats, the flaw-blown sleet. And it's an example of how if you read poetry, you will inevitably build your vocabulary. There are people all over YouTube that say, how do you build your vocabulary and blah, blah. Well, if you just read poetry, inevitably. I mean, today was the first time I ever looked up that word. I've read it in the Keats innumerable times and never thought to look it up because Keats lulls you into the sense of being there totally at one with him. And there again, world, unfurled, curled, hurled. I mean, I particularly dread when I end a line with world. Let's just say that. A wall to hem the azure sphere, and hedge me in from the disconsolate hills. Give me but one of all the mountain rills enough of ocean in its voice I hear. Come no profane, insatiate mortal near, with the contagion of his passionate ills. The smoke of battle all the valleys fills. Let the eternal sunlight greet me here. This spot is sacred to the deeper soul, and to the piety that mocks no more. In nature's inmost heart is no uproar, none in this shrine. In peace the heavens roll, in peace the slow tides pulse from shore to shore, and ancient quiet broods from pole to pole. And ancient quiet broods from pole to pole. Oh my God. 1,000 beauties that have never been haunt me with hope and tempt me to pursue. The gods, methinks, dwell just behind the blue. The satyrs at my coming fled the green. The flitting shadows of the grove between the dryad's eyes were winking, and I knew the wings of sacred Eros as he flew and left me to the love of things not seen. 'Tis a sad love, like an eternal prayer, and knows no keen delight, no faint surcease. Yet from the seasons hath the earth increase, and heaven shines as if the gods were there. Had Dian passed, there could be no deeper peace, embalm the purple stretches of the air. Had Dian passed, there could no deeper peace embalm the purple stretches of the air. I don't know the reference, Dian. I mean, Santayana was obviously well versed in the classics. I am not. There was a time when in the teeth of fate I flung the challenge of the spirit's right. The child, the dreamer of that visioned night, woke and was humbled unto man's estate. A slave I am, on sun and moon I wait, who heed not that I live upon their light. Me they despise, but are themselves so bright they flood my heart with love and quench my hate. O subtle beauty, sweet persuasive worth, that didst the love of being first inspire, we do thee homage both in death and birth. Thirsting for thee, we die in thy great dearth, or borrow breath of infinite desire, to chase thine image through the haunted earth. I mean, that woke in the first stanza. There was a time when in the teeth of fate I flung the challenge of the spirit's right. The child, the dreamer of that visioned night, woke and was humbled unto man's estate. I mean, to do that, I mean, that's just, I mean, I do the same sort of thing often enough, but I do it poorly. I mean, from the craftsman's standpoint, that's delectable. Just delectable. And there was something else here as well. But, well, let me go on. Blaspheme not love, ye lovers, nor dispraise the wise divinity that makes you blind, sealing the eyes, but showing to the mind the high perfection from which nature strays. For love is God, and in unfathomed ways brings forth the beauty for which fancy pined. I loved and lost my love among mankind, but I have found it after many days. Oh, trust in God and banish rash despair, that feigning evil is itself the curse. My angel is come back, more sad and fair, and witness to the truth of love I bear, with too much rapture for this sacred verse, at the exceeding answer to my prayer. I think I was not ready for this when I was younger. Above the battlements of heaven rise the glittering domes of the gods' golden dwelling, whence, like a constellation, passion quelling, the truth of all things feeds immortal eyes. There all forgotten dreams of paradise, from the deep caves of memory upwelling, all tender joys beyond our dim foretelling, are ever bright beneath the flooded skies. There we live o'er, amid angelic powers, our lives without remorse, as if not ours, and others' lives with love, as if our own. For we behold from those eternal towers the deathless beauty of all winged hours, and have our being in their truth alone. I mean, that for its grammar is just brilliant. I mean, oh my God. There we live o'er, amid angelic powers, our lives without remorse, as if not ours, and others' lives with love, as if our own. What can you say? And finally, number 20. This may not be the last of Santayana. There are 30 more in this immediate sequence. Sonnets, they're followed by Sonnets 1895, so, and there are 30 in that. I may have to break that down. And then miscellaneous sonnets. And he did some translations. I think I have a couple up on this channel of Michelangelo. These strewn thoughts by the mountain pathway sprung, I conned for comfort till I ceased to grieve. And with these flowering thorns I dare to weave the crown, great mother, on thine altar hung. Teach thou a larger speech to my loosed tongue, and to mine opened eyes thy secrets give, that in thy perfect love I learn to live, and in thine immortality be young. The soul is not on earth an alien thing that hath her life's rich sources otherwhere. She is a parcel of the sacred air. She takes her being from the breath of spring. The glance of Phoebus is her fount of light, and her long sleep a draught of primal night. And so we leave it there. 20 sonnets by George Santayana. I want to say now the great Santayana, a man who would be ejected from the United States of America had he immigrated to this country now, or 15 years ago, whatever, or however many years ago, had he lived here now. Oh, he would be manacled. He would be thrown into that holding cell. He might perchance be sent down to a gulag in El Salvador or sent to a prison of some sort in civil war-torn Sudan. We just don't know. Such is the fate or fates of many today. Let us keep urging the arc of the moral universe toward justice. It cannot get there without our urging. Thank you for stopping by my channel.